You're listening to Conversations Ignite.
Welcome, listeners. I'm your host, Robbie, and in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my kidney issues and the impact that it's had on my life. This experience has definitely shaped who I am today and has inspired me to take on some new adventures. So if you're ready, let's dive in and explore the highs, lows, and everything in between. So my story starts. It was a Tuesday evening. And I started to feel not so well. Had some trouble breathing. I didn't really know what was going on. Went to bed and thought that, hey, I'll just feel better when I wake up tomorrow morning. So I woke up on Wednesday morning and was not feeling any better. Actually, it was even harder to breathe. So I decided to take myself to the emergency room. I ended up driving myself to the emergency room. When I got there, I obviously told them, I didn't feel well. I was having trouble breathing. And they took me back to the actual room right away. Doctor was asking what was going on. I was telling him I was having some trouble breathing. And of course, at that point, they started putting some IVs in, started taking some blood, and trying to figure out what was going on. So they took a bunch of blood, and, at this point, I'm starting to freak out because not sure quite what's going on. I hadn't been feeling well maybe a couple weeks before. Had gotten a sinus infection, and ended up getting some antibiotics for that. So, of course, I told the doctor that. He said he thought that it might be the sinus infection coming back. But, they'd find more once they ran some tests, see if anything else was going on. So, ended up waiting for quite a while, waiting for a little bit of time. At this point, obviously, I had called my parents and told them, hey, I'm not feeling very well and I'm in the hospital right now. So, of course, at that point, they, my dad had said, hey, let me know if you need me, call me and let me know what's going on. So, I just kind of, just stayed there, waited for the doctor to come back. Probably about an hour later, the doctor comes in and says, do you have any kidney problems? And I said, no. In fact, I haven't been to the doctor in quite a long time. At that point, I don't think I'd been to the doctor in probably about 10 years. I'm fairly young and fairly healthy, so I just hadn't gone back, which after this whole issue, I definitely learned I should. But he had asked, do you have any kidney issues? And I said, nope, not at all. And he said, well, your creatinine level came back at 7.7, I think is what they said. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, is that good? Is that bad? And he had said to me, well, the normal range is to be under 1.2. And I kind of said, well, that doesn't sound good. And he said, no, I'm going to rerun the blood tests just in case something's off. He said, obviously, you look pretty healthy, and your creatinine level should not be that high. So I said, okay. He said, no need to worry right now. He said, let me rerun the tests, and we'll get back. So about another hour went by, and at that point, he came back in and said, well, the second test came back, and it definitely shows that your creatinine is very elevated. So at that point, I don't know what's going on, and he's asking me more questions. Do I feel okay? What other symptoms do I have? And he started explaining some of the symptoms of kidney failure. And, of course, he's asking me all these questions. Are you swollen? Are you like not able to urinate? Uh, all these just different questions, and I'm like, no, honestly, I feel fine. I said the only problem is I can't breathe. Like I'm having trouble breathing. He asked me, are you do you have less energy? And I definitely did say, yeah, I work, anywhere from 50 to 60, maybe 65, 70 hours a week. So I had I'd contributed that, lack of energy to just working a lot. And he said, well, lack of energy is definitely a symptom. So I said, okay. Um, so at that point, he was trying to find out if it was acute or not. Um, he said that if it was acute, they could probably treat it, um, push a bunch of fluids, and it should help improve my kidney function. So that's what they did. They started pushing a bunch of fluids, and at this point, I'm calling my dad back and telling him everything that's going on. So he's asking me, you want me to come down to the hospital? And I said, no, I really don't know anything else. So I guess just let's wait it out. So, at this point, I'm starting to get pretty worried. And ended up my parents, my mom and dad actually both came down to the hospital, to see how I was doing. Doctors ended up coming back a couple hours later after, they'd started doing some different procedures and stuff. I'm getting multiple blood tests, and they came back and said that, it really doesn't look like anything that we're doing is helping. So at this point, I'm starting to get even more concerned. And they're not really worried about my breathing issue at this point. Obviously, they've given me some different medicine, and it's starting to get better. So before I go off anymore, they definitely attributed to the breathing issue anxiety. They've pretty much said, hey, you're pretty much having an anxiety attack. Which is kind of funny because I never had any anxiety before this. So they kind of attribute that to my body just finally, kind of almost shutting down and, saying, hey, something's wrong. You need to go get checked out. So it's definitely kind of interesting to see what your body can do. It can definitely let you know in some weird and different ways, hey, something's wrong. Go get checked out. So, obviously, they don't know quite what's going on, so they end up admitting me to the hospital. At that point, it's pretty late in the night. Ended up getting put into a room, and my parents ended up going home. The next morning, I woke up and still having some breathing issues, not terrible, but feeling a little better at this point. But the doctors come back in, and they ended up bringing in a nephrologist. And a nephrologist is somebody who strictly deals with renal issues, kidney issues. So the doctor, the nephrologist, he's asking me the same questions that the doctors yesterday had asked me. And, give him the same answers. I really don't feel bad, terrible. This breathing, the breathing issues, kind of, what brought me in. But other than that, I'm a little tired, a little worn out, but I work a lot, so I thought that that's what it was. So at this point, he says, well, we need to take a biopsy of your kidney and find out if it's find out what exactly is going on. So later that day, They ended up doing a biopsy. So this is now Thursday. And stayed in the hospital until Friday evening. After the biopsy that night, they said, we won't get any results until probably early next week. So I, I'm feeling a little bit better, feeling better. Still very, not sure of anything at this point, not sure what's going on. So since I'm feeling better on, Friday evening, they ended up releasing me and end up going home. My parents took me back home and got back home, was doing okay. And spent the weekend home. I had talked to my company, and they had said take the weekend off, come back Monday, hopefully you'll feel better. So I ended up taking that weekend off, and I ended up going over to my parents on Sunday, and something just didn't feel right. Like, I didn't feel right. Ended up staying at my parents that whole night. I felt very jittery, very anxious, just didn't know what was going on. So my parents said, hey, why don't you stay here? We'll make sure everything's okay. And in the morning when I woke up, I definitely was feeling worse. Like, I didn't know what was going on. Very, very anxious. Like, couldn't sleep, just didn't know what was going on. So obviously I had already, spent 3 days in the hospital. So everything started that Tuesday night, and Wednesday went to the hospital, stayed there Wednesday, Thursday, got out Friday night. So I'm at my parents' house that Sunday, wasn't feeling good, spent the night. Monday morning just was even worse. So mid-afternoon, my dad decided he was going to take me back to the hospital. So that Monday, I ended up back in the hospital. The nephrologist that I'd been previously talking to, he came back, ended up talking to me again, said that there was an issue with the biopsy. So this is like Monday night. So he's telling me, hey, there was an issue with the biopsy. We're going to have to redo the biopsy. So, along with everything else, they found that my sodium, when I'd come back to the hospital, was very, very low, like critically low. So they obviously readmitted me that Monday. And the whole time I'm feeling just terrible because it's my mom's birthday, and, I was going to work that day, get off of work, and, go over and see them. So at this point, I'm feeling terrible because I'm just ruining my mom's birthday. The whole time, she's telling me, don't worry, don't worry. It's, not your fault that you don't feel good, but you know how it goes. You just feel bad. So, talking to the nephrologist and telling me that something went wrong with the biopsy and that the results were inconclusive. So, they ended up scheduling me for another biopsy. I think it was Tuesday. It was either Tuesday, or I may have had to wait till Wednesday. But ended up, staying in the hospital for a whole nother week. So I got back that Monday, afternoon. Spent the next week. I think I got out on Friday afternoon. So spent a whole nother week in the hospital. They're running multiple tests to try to figure out what's going on with my kidneys. They did the biopsy. Like I said, they did the second biopsy. That was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember exactly sure which day. But they came back and they said, we'll get those results back in, a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, but a couple of days. So hopefully early next week. So they ended up getting all of my basic levels under control, except for like my creatinine. It was still elevated. I think they had gotten it down to like right above 7. so still way above the 1.2 that it was supposed to be at. So ended up finally getting out that Friday night. Did a lot better. I was able to go back to work that Monday. And that Tuesday, I ended up having a follow-up appointment with my nephrologist. So I was able to go back to work on Monday. Tuesday, I went to work. I had to leave to go to the appointment. And I'm talking to my boss, and I said, "Hey, after my appointment, I'll definitely be back, and I'll let you know what's going on, because everybody at work's worried. They're worried about me." And ended up getting to the nephrologist, and had the appointment, and he ends up going to the office, and he says, so the biopsy came back, and it is definitely not acute. So this issue has been going on for quite a while. And, I'm asking, what's quite a while? He said, honestly, we can't tell you. We just know that it's been for a while. So I'm like, okay, well, this obviously doesn't sound good. So what do we do now? How do we go about it? So he ends up saying, well, at this point, your creatinine is so elevated that you need dialysis. You need dialysis immediately. And pretty much you need a kidney transplant. You are in total renal failure. And, at this point, I don't know a lot about kidney issues. I've heard of dialysis. I don't really know what it is. Obviously I've heard of kidney transplant, so I am just, at this point, I'm floored. Like, I have no earthly idea what's going on. So he says, we need to get you on dialysis, as quickly as possible. So, I'm saying, well, what exactly is dialysis? What do I do? How am I going to work? And he said, well, there's two options. There is regular hemodialysis, and then there is peritoneal dialysis. And, I'm saying, well, what's the difference? And he's explaining to me that, hemodialysis is traditional dialysis. You go to a dialysis center for, usually 3 times a week, and they basically take your blood out, clean it, and put it back into your body. And peritoneal dialysis, he's explaining, is a little bit different. You do it from home. You actually have a machine, and the machine actually, you hook up to a port, and it puts fluid into your peritoneal cavity, and that fluid pretty much, it's got particles, and all the bad stuff in your kidneys get trapped in those particles, and then you bring the fluid out through a port. So at this point, I don't know. I've literally spent about 30 minutes with him at this point. He's told me that I need a kidney transplant and I need to be put on dialysis. So I'm freaking out pretty good. I end up leaving the doctor's office, and obviously he gave me some contacts. He gave me contacts to a dialysis center that's right down the street from my house, and he said, I'm very good friends with all the dialysis staff, the nurses there, so let me have them give you a call. And I said, okay, that's fine. And he said, we're gonna figure out the best method for you. So I ended up, going back to work, and on the way home, I pull over, and I call my parents and my sister, and basically I'm breaking down, just I don't know what any of this means, and everybody told me, they said, don't worry, we'll figure it out, everything will be okay. And it's kind of hard to hear that, because in the back of your mind you're thinking, is it really going to be okay? So I end up getting back to work, and I pull my boss upstairs, and we go into the office, and I start breaking down, and I just really start breaking down, and I've been working with this same guy. We've been working together for probably about 5 years, so we're very close. We're real good friends. Um, and I explain what's going on. I tell him I guess I need a kidney transplant and I need dialysis. I don't know what to do. So he says the same exact thing to me. He says, "Well, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure it out." So I through the whole thing, I have had I had a huge support system, and to this day, I still have that support system. I'm so grateful for that. I don't honestly know how I would have made it through if not for that support system. So, I talked to him for a while, and he says, why don't you why don't you go home? You've had enough for today, and just go home and relax. And obviously, I said okay. I knew it was going to be kind of hard to just go home and relax, but I ended up going home, and right as soon as I got home, I got a phone call from a number that I didn't know, so I figured that it was one of the doctors. And I ended up answering it, and it is a dialysis nurse. And it was the same dialysis nurse that the nephrologist that I had been earlier that day with the appointment. It was one of his good friends. So I ended up talking to this dialysis nurse, and you know obviously I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and she's asking me questions, and she's like, so I've seen your creatinine levels, and we've got to get you on dialysis like immediately. So um, I'm like, I don't even know what choice to make. I don't. How do you make a choice when you don't even know? Um, how do you make a choice when you just don't even know what's going on? And she said, well, I totally understand where you're at. She said, sometime later this week, why don't you come down to the dialysis center, and I'll explain exactly with what both dialysis options are. She said she'll explain hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. And I said, okay, that sounds like a plan. So, um, I ended up going down. I think it was that Friday, and I ended up having my sister come with me. Um, that way, she could help ask questions on what was going on. So, end up going down that Friday, and end up uh, see, seeing both the processes of both kinds of dialysis, and getting to actually talk with the dialysis nurses and the dialysis team. Um, so glad that I had the team that I did. They really took care of me through this whole process. Um, that day, made me feel very, very comfortable. Very comfortable. They ended up really showing me and explaining to me the different processes behind both. So they ended up explaining to me that we ended up talking for a while, and as a collective team, me, my sister, and the dialysis nurses, we decided that peritoneal dialysis was going to be the best option for me because I could do it from home. I could do it overnight, and it wouldn't affect my work. So they ended up explaining that I was gonna need a port. I was gonna need a port put in my stomach. So ended up getting done with the appointment. ended up feeling really confident about, the options that they had given me, and, hopefully that it was going to be a good outcome. So, I um, ended up calling the hospital that they had recommended, for surgery for a dialysis port, and ended up getting a consultation that next week. So, once again, my sister came with me to that appointment. Um, and we ended up talking to the surgeon, and they were explaining how, they were going to put the port in, and, the process that was going to happen. And ended up having surgery. They scheduled that surgery for later that week. So, ended up going for surgery, having the port put in. I believe it was Thursday is when the surgery happened. Obviously, I had to take some time off for work. But after the port was put in, I was back to work that next Monday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So 4 days. I was out of work for 4 days. Ended up being able to go back, obviously on a very uh, restricted ability. They did tell me through the whole process. They said, you won't be able to lift more than 20 pounds. And obviously working in, a corporate retail environment, I was like, that's going to be tough. But ended up working with the company. The company was very great to me. They obviously understood my limitations. Um, but got back to work. And at this point, I've had another appointment with my dialysis nurses. Um, they uh, they started me up on the peritoneal dialysis. After the port was put in, I think it took I think it took about um 2 weeks before they could actually start the dialysis process. They had to let the port heal and make sure everything was correct. But obviously, each week I'm going down to the dialysis center. They're checking on it, making sure everything's okay. So ended up starting the dialysis process. My nurses were great. They ended up there's this whole process you have to do when you actually start peritoneal dialysis. They actually have to come to your home and train you at your house. And some immediate family or friends also have to get trained with you, so that way, if something happens to you, um, at least there's some people very close that can help out. So they ended up, starting the whole process. Obviously, they're working very closely with my nephrologist, and my nephrologist actually, referred me to um, a kidney specialist. That's where, at the hospital, and that's where they would actually do the transplant. So, obviously, I'm set up on dialysis. I've started dialysis. I've actually gotten, I've reached out to the transplant center at the, one of the hospitals in Georgia, and ended up getting a transplant evaluation appointment. So let's just see this. So everything started in, late February, very, very late February. By by the, middle of March, I was, on dialysis set up. I don't think I'd actually started. I had the port in. But I was closer to the end, I believe the end of March, like right at the end of March is, right when I started, the actual dialysis. And right at that time is also when, I got a transplant evaluation at, the, transplant center. So, they warn you that it's going to be a very long appointment. And, it definitely was a very long appointment. It ended up taking I think it was almost 8 hours. I got there at, I think it was 6 o'clock in the morning and left around 2. They're very thorough. When I went, my sister came with me again. Um, that we ended up having, the appointment where basically you're just talking with another nephrologist. And they're kind of explaining the whole transplant process and, everything that goes into the transplant process. So, very interesting. After the initial appointment, then they had a bunch of other classes that you had to attend. It was explaining how the process goes, what happens during the process, what happens after the process. So it's a very lengthy. It's basically a class, and it's a whole class that entails the whole process. They don't leave anything out. So very very awesome process. So ended up having the appointment, going to the class, and then after the class is when they do some tests. So, obviously, I had to have a bunch of blood drawn and then had to do a couple of other diagnostic tests. Um, and I remember, so at this point, I'm getting pretty used to being poked by needles. They draw a lot of blood, do a lot of tests when you are going through kidney failure. So, I didn't realize, but, got to this point of the evaluation. And I'm not joking, they drew probably 18 vials of blood from me. That's a lot. That's a lot of blood. So, but obviously they're running tests for everything under the sun. So, basically that's how the, transplant evaluation went. Had the appointment with the actual nephrologist at the transplant center. Went to, a bunch of, it was a class, went to a class and then had a bunch of tests taken. So after everything, then you meet back with the nephrologist after everything's over, just to make sure everything went okay. So, they tell you at the very end of the appointment, um, they're, going to run all the tests, and make sure everything's good. And then they'll have a panel that will actually evaluate your case. And if you qualify, you'll get listed on the kidney transplant registry. So I'm like, okay, awesome. Sounds great. So once again, I said this was probably it was April, beginning of April. I want to say is right when I had that appointment. Um, so had multiple appointments. With my main nephrologist and with my dialysis nurses. After that initial kidney evaluation with the transplant center. Had a couple different follow up phone calls from the transplant center, and I remember it was I was coming home from work and I got a call. So I'm coming home from work and this was at the like middle of May, and I remember them telling me that I'd get a phone call letting me know that I had been, accepted to, be put on the transplant list. So got a phone call coming home from work, and it was my transplant coordinator, and they had said that I had been accepted to the transplant list, which was apparently very quick for being accepted. They'd also said, don't be surprised. It could be, 3 to 5 years before you get a donor. And I remember kind of thinking, wow, that's a long time. But the whole process, I'm trying to stay positive. In fact, a bunch of people asked me, how are you so positive? I said, well, at this point, there's nothing I can do to change the outcome. It is what it is. So I just have to do what's best for me, and I can't let it bring me down. And I think that that's one of the biggest things, besides my family and friends that really, got me through it was just accepting the fact that, you can't change what happened. It is what it is. So you just have to, kind of roll with the punches and, deal with it as it comes. So, they had, let me know that I was on the transplant list and, it was, could quite possibly be a very long time before I actually received the kidney. So, at this point, I hadn't really thought much about any, possible donors. They had talked to me about, matching, if anybody in my family, wanted to possibly, donate a kidney, they could do some match testing, and there's actually a cool process. Even if you're not a match to whoever you're trying to donate to, so if you want to donate to somebody and you're not a direct match to that person, they can actually pair match you. So like if you want to donate and you match somebody else, and that person that needs that kidney matches with somebody in their family or one of their friends, you kind of switch. So like say somebody in my family wanted to donate and they didn't match, but they matched with another family, that person could actually get my family member's kidney, and then that family member from the other transplant person would actually be able to donate to me. So it's kind of like paired matching. It's pretty cool. Um, so I was talking to somebody at work, and one of my good friends at work, and she had said, I really want to try to donate to you. Um, and for her to say that just meant the world. And I didn't want to ask my family. I didn't want to put my family through that. So I hadn't really asked anybody if they were willing to donate. So she had said that, and it just meant the world because, like I said, I just really didn't want to put my family through that. I know that I probably could have asked and, but I just didn't want to. So, when she told me that she, was willing to, get tested and see if we matched, I was very grateful. And this was towards right at the end of May. I had called, my coordinator and let her know, I had, had somebody potentially that, maybe wanted to donate. So, they ended up getting, this workmate's, contact information and contacting her. Um, but before they could really do anything, I got a phone call, right at the end of May, and they said that they had, possibly had found somebody that could, be a donor kidney. And this is right after they called me. This is, not even a month after they had called me and said, "Hey, it could be, 3 to 5 years before we get a match." So I'm thinking, thinking to myself, this is, way too good to be true. I ended up calling my dialysis nurses, and they had pretty much said, don't be surprised if it falls through. Um, they said, we really pray that it goes through. We really hope it does, but don't be surprised if it falls through. So, like I said, that was, late at night. It was probably about 7, 8 o'clock at night when they called me. Um, and the next morning, I don't know what to do. Because they haven't called me back yet. So I'm at work and they called me back and said, "Hey, this kidney is not viable. We are so sorry, but you are very close to the bottom of the list, or the top of the list. I'm sorry, top. You're very close to the top of the list, so don't give up hope." So I'm thinking, okay, well, that was just, one out of a million fluke. It'll be a long time before I even get another phone call. So, at this point, it's, right at the very end of May. So, continue working, not giving up, just pushing along through. And it was probably about the middle of June and middle to end of June. Um, it was probably, yeah, probably closer to the end of June. They called me back again and said, we have another potential match. Um, we'll let you know very soon, what happens. So once again, it's late afternoon, early evening. They call me, and spent the whole night, pins and needles. And next day, they called me back and told me again, um, you know, the kidney's viable, but it's got some issues. We would much rather wait for a healthy kidney, a more healthy kidney for you. And I said that's fine. I said obviously, this is only the second time that y'all have called. It's fine. I totally understand. I would I want to have the best kidney I can. So, once again, talk to my dialysis nurses. I'm going there once, usually once a week. And, they're saying, wow, we can't believe that you've already gotten another phone call. They said, this is just amazing. Keep up the faith, third time's a charm, third time's a charm. So, I'm like, "Oh, you're right. Third time's a charm." But at the back of my mind, I'm remembering, the transplant coordinators telling me 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years. So, go back to work, doing just fine, doing great. Um, and it is August 27th. I know that date very well. August 27th. Was it? So it was. I want to say they called late this time. Transplant center calls me. I think it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Um, 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They said, "Hey, sorry to wake you, but we do have another potential, donor for you." And I said, "Great, awesome." They said, "We will call you back tomorrow." And I'm so this is the third time. I'm used to them calling me pretty late. And usually the first two times they called me, mid-morning to let me know, that the kidneys weren't really viable. So, I'm at work and it's getting close to me getting off. I want to say it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm at this point I've kind of lost hope, because they've called me back so early the past two times. So, getting ready to leave. I'm walking up to my office, and my phone rings, and I answer it, and it's the transplant center, and they said, "Mr. Ross, we have a viable donor. We need you to be at the hospital by 8 p.m. tonight." They said, "Do not drink anything or eat anything after about 7, but we need you here by 8 p.m. tonight." And I'm just like floored. I don't know what to do. Uh, you know, I ended up, talking to my boss. He comes upstairs, and I'm just like dumbfounded. He's asking, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And I said, "They found me a kidney." And he says, "Get out of here. Go now." He said, "Don't worry. Don't worry about anything. Just go. Be safe and get there." So, I rush over to my parents' house, and I'm telling them what's going on, and it's just amazing, amazing feeling. I ended up going back to my house real quick. I had to get I had to get a couple pairs of clothes and just some stuff to take to the hospital. So, I get back, on the phone with my dialysis nurses telling them, "Hey, they've got me a kidney. They got me a kidney." So, get to the hospital. My dad comes over. My mom and dad come over, and they take me to the hospital, and um, get there right before 8 o'clock at night. Get there right before 8. They take me up to the hospital room, and let me tell you, they run every test under the world on you. They really do. They just run every test. I think that I was, I think that I was awake until about 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. They're taking blood, they're taking X-rays, they're taking every kind of test imaginable to make sure that you're healthy and ready to go. So, um, get to the hospital. This is the 28th now. They called me on the 27th, let me know possibility. Call me back on the 28th while I'm at work, and they said, it's go time. So, at the hospital that night, doing lots of tests, and they ended up telling my parents and my sister, surgery is going to be tomorrow at 8 a.m. And, at this point, I'm so lost in everything. I didn't really get a chance to understand what was going on. Obviously I knew, hey, I'm getting a transplant, but to really comprehend how fast it's going is just crazy and mind-boggling. So, they're running tests on me all night, and end up. I think it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little earlier, maybe 6:30. My family's back at the hospital with me, and 6:30, 7 o'clock, they roll me down to pre-op, and they had warned me the whole night before. They said, "Hey, everything should be great, but there's always that possibility that something's going to happen." So they end up rolling me down to pre-op, and the surgeon comes in, and he starts talking to me, and he says, the kidney looks great. It looks great. He said, and you are a almost perfect match to the kidney. They are so there's a bunch of tests that they run, and I think it's 775. I can't remember exactly how many alleles they look for, but they look for a certain amount of alleles that match up. And I remember the surgeon telling me it is, you are a perfect match out of that. He said that's so rare to ever happen. Um, and it's just amazing. So he ends up, talking to me about the whole surgery, tells me what's going to be going on. And, he's telling me, just how amazing it is. So after that point, basically all I remember is my family coming into the pre-op room as I'm being rolled out. And they're telling me to, count down. And God, I can barely remember counting down from 10. Next thing I remember, I wake up in, I guess it was my hospital room. Um, I remember waking up in the hospital room, um, and not really, uh, I wake up and not really know what's going on. But they ended up telling me that the surgery went well. It went great. And everything was great. Um, so that was August 29th is actually when I had the transplant. So August 29th at 8 a.m. is when they started. I don't really remember a lot about that day. Obviously, I was on a bunch of pain medication. Um, but I remember the next day they came to me, and they asked, do I want to be taken off the pain medicine? And they said, if you stop the pain medicine, then we can take all the extra monitors off of you. And I said, you know what, that sounds great. So they took me off the pain meds, and I could get all the heart monitoring stuff off and everything. And I remember, so I went to the 29th, the 28th. the day that I actually got to the hospital, that was a Sunday. The 29th was a Monday. That Monday is when I actually had the transplant. So Tuesday, I remember Tuesday. I remember just being so grateful, and not, just not really comprehending, how awesome this really was. Um, just to be able to, get a transplant and, get such a great match. But, I started out very late February having these issues and getting a transplant, right before September 1st. That's very unheard of, and I to this day I'm still just so grateful. So obviously, I spent about a week in the hospital. I think I got out that Friday, from the transplant center. But you're in the, right after the transplant, they obviously, they're teaching you, about your anti-rejection medicine. I have to take a, bunch of anti-rejection medicine, and it'll be for the rest of my life. It's actually kind of weird how your body works. It actually, it knows that your kidney is that transplant kidney is not yours, and it tries to fight it off. And that's why you have to take anti-rejection medicine, so that, it lowers your, white blood count and doesn't try to actually fight the new organ off. Very, very, your body's just very amazing. But obviously, they, had to teach me about my, medicine. I had to learn, the whole regiment for my medicine. Had to go through some classes just to learn, how to deal with the, after of having a transplant. Um, Obviously, there's some, certain foods I can't eat now. Had to go to classes for that. I actually remember, I remember walking, into the class, and it's a whole medicine class, whole eating class. Obviously they're, teaching you, what you should eat after a transplant, how to stay healthy. And the nurse that's actually teaching it, she says, some people are gonna hate me, some people are gonna love me. And, we kind of laugh. And she said, now that y'all have had a transplant, you are no longer able to eat sushi. And, that's like one of the worst things to hear because I love sushi. Um, but now I can't have anything that's raw, because my, white blood count's lowered, my immune system's lowered. I'm very immune compromised now. I can't have anything that's raw because of, potential bacteria in raw meat or raw fish. But that's one of the things that I'll have to deal with. But take that over, possibly, not surviving. I will take that any day of the week. There's a couple other, weird things. Grapefruit's another thing I can't eat. Some of the other, tropical fruits, some of the tropical fruits I just can't have. It interacts with my medicine. But you learn all this going to that class. Um, so had some great adventures, not adventures, but had a great time, after the transplant, just learning from the nurses and everything, really how to take care of myself and, make sure that this kidney lasts as long as it can. Had multiple visits by my surgeon. I can't speak highly enough about him. He was just amazing. Every morning, after the transplant until the day I got out, he was in that hospital room checking on me. And in fact, all the transplant doctors, from the hospital, they would check on me constantly throughout the day. So, it was just a great experience all the way around. I can't speak highly enough from it. But got out of the hospital that Friday, and, I ended up being out of work for about 4 months. It took me about 4 months to recover. I actually, take infusions now. Um, it's so there's a couple different, medicine treatments, but I do take an infusion. So it's one less pill I have to take, but I'll have to take that infusion for the rest of my life. But of course, I do take a bunch of other anti-rejection, medicine along with that infusion. So, that's kind of my story, kind of how it happened, what happened during the process. Like I said, I really can't say enough for my family, my friends, my dialysis nurses. They were amazing. And then my transplant team. The whole process, it was obviously scary. But I really, just thank God that, everything was okay. And, I'm so glad that through the whole process, I was able to stay positive. You hear a lot of times that, just it's hard to stay positive. It is hard to stay positive, but the more good you think, the easier it is. And that, that's coming from personal experience. So, like I said, I'm just thankful to have my friends, family, my dialysis nurses and my transplant team. I'm really thankful to just have them, there through this. To this day, I still thank my family for being, for going through it with me. And they every day, I'm just thankful. So that's kind of my story. I really do hope you can find some inspiration from it. If you have any questions about anything, please feel free to let me know. I'll answer any questions. I'll make a video about it. Just let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I'm just so happy to be here. So happy to be able to be telling my story. So, let's just wrap this up. Thank you for joining me today. I hope my story has given you some insight and maybe a bit of inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share with somebody who may benefit from hearing my story. Stay tuned for more engaging conversations, and remember, every story has the power to ignite change. Until next time, keep that fire burning.
Thanks for listening to Conversations Ignite. See you next time.